Well, Hitler came to power and the Holocaust happened, which that I see as Satan's attempt to preventing the return of the Jewish people to the land. And of course, ironically, it became the very ticket to the land, because the world opinion at that point favored them, and the League of Nations then approved that officially a portion be given to them. And so in 1948, it passed from the hands of the British to the hands of the Zionist movement. And so the very thing that was designed to stop them became the very thing that was used to, it seems, as tragic as it may seem, to bring them back to the land.
There is a branch of, I guess we could call it ufology, called Victor Vigiani, who joins me on the program usually once a month.
Yes.
He's from Exopolitics Toronto. The term exopolitics, I don't know if it was termed by Michael Salla, but here's an individual who believes that what is going on in the world today, politically, can be explained in some part by the presence of UFOs, of ETs. However, he doesn't see necessarily an ominous role for ETs.
Yes.
You do, of course. I share
Yes.
that view, that these are fallen angels. So what sort of influence then do you believe these UFOs or these fallen angels are having in the Mideast right now? How are they pulling strings?
Okay, if you take a kind of a bird's eye view of the planet, and you say, well, the fact that the return to the land is an act of God, then you have to say, well, how is Satan and the fallen angels countering this event? One thing is the rise of militant Islam, which is very hostile to the very existence of this state. Then what we see is an incredibly sophisticated system of diplomacy that at all costs wants to say, if you put your hands into the hands of the world system, it will provide you the peace you're looking for. And so perhaps what the end result of that diplomacy is essentially to usher in the final world emperor, who will be hailed perhaps as the peacemaker. And so the ultimate goal of that diplomacy is to give power to what our documentary presents as a chief hybrid. And so there's that event happening.
Well, let me just back up there. That's interesting. So the Antichrist
Yes.
will be the chief hybrid. In fact, an alien-human hybrid.
The seed of the serpent indicates the very hybrid made of Satan himself. And I know this may sound really out there, but with the research, that's where the research takes us. That this is, when you look at the prophetic writings and when you take into consideration the history of the planet, with all the interaction with flying beings, and follow the breadcrumbs to the modern world, and look at what's happening with the creation of hybrids, this is where it takes you. That the end goal of this diplomacy is to put on the throne of the world the Antichrist. And so it's disguised in an attempt to bring peace to the world, because that is such a popular idea. Who in their right mind wouldn't want peace, especially in the Middle East? So there's that side, which we're seeing. There's the rise of the East. There's Persia, India, China, and in the prophetic writings, they are to play a role. Even some would say that Russia. There's a prophecy in the book of Ezekiel that talks about a regional war that involves essentially modern-day states that are all Muslim, and Russia. And what we see today is that as Russia is finding itself more and more isolated since the collapse of the Soviet Union, America has really moved in and made a lot of these ex-Soviet states NATO countries and has put bases in them. Russia feels isolated, and so it has become the industrial patron of the counter-Israel movement in the Middle East. It's providing them with the teeth, with the planes, with the guns they would need to carry out their goal. And my personal opinion is that from the fallen angels, the idea is never really to destroy Israel through the Muslim militant movement, but rather to create enough of a threat of war, enough of it's like the brown shirts and Hitler, enough of an annoyance so that the Antichrist can walk in and make the peace. That there's a larger strategy at hand. So essentially, if you take a bird's eye view of the planet and say, well, the return of the Jewish people is the fulfillment of the prophecies of God, then everything that's countering it, everything that's trying to capture it, everything that's trying to essentially control it and take it over, whether it's through diplomacy, whether it's through the military, all of these things can be seen as the actions of the fallen angels. It is their counterattack against what God has accomplished. Jerusalem is obviously the belly of the earth and a powerful place. And if you can put the one on the throne of David, then perhaps there's a great amount of power that comes with that.
All right. Ali Siadatan is the writer-director of UFOs, Angels and Gods, joins us once again here on the Richard Syrett Show, News Talk 1010 CFRB. If the much of the world's strife, the ongoing, perpetual, never-ending crisis in the Middle East, is in fact caused by the presence of the fallen angels, now in the guise of UFOs. Would you go so far, Ali, as to suggest that, for example, factions, Islamofascists, Al-Qaeda, Bin Laden, in fact, might be alien-human hybrids? That's very possible. He is very tall, and he has apparently, problems with his kidneys. So there's something that's not quite. And the Book of Daniel that speaks of this commingling of the seeds says that they will commingle the seeds, but it shall not adhere as clay does not adhere to iron. So there might be a problem. Yes, absolutely. It's possible that we've got lots of hybrids in that movement, and there's also the question of the spiritual inspiration and energy that fills their minds. What is the source of that energy? Because if we're talking about fallen angels, we're talking about beings that can influence the mind of humans on mass level. And so where are they getting this hatred from? What is inspiring this hatred in their hearts? What spirit is causing that? So you have an angelic influence, perhaps, and then you have actual hybrids on the ground organizing things. Yes, I would say that it's very conceivable that movement is hybrid-filled. Is there in any sort of statistical analysis to talk that would tell us, for example, that in when it comes to alien abductions, there is a greater percentage of those of Middle Eastern descent that are being victimized by this, or? Unfortunately, the statistics that we have are mainly concern the industrial world, and essentially the U.S., because that's where a lot of the research is happening. There's a long history of UFO research going back to Project Blue Book in America. And unfortunately, we don't have statistics, but Professor Jacobs, whom I interviewed, said that, he receives emails from all around the world, and one country he especially mentioned was Egypt, where he receives emails talking about, alien abductions. It is without a doubt, a global phenomenon. And we were talking about the world that is the Western world, but if we kind of now take a perspective and say, well, what's happening in the Western world that fits in this larger picture we're talking about? I would say that what we are experiencing here is that a series of fears are being marketed to us, and the answer is always to surrender more power to the central authority. It's as though a tightening of the noose is happening here. The phony war on terror being and now we're in the marketing stages.